Footstep cool.
What's up, world? Let's get it poppin' with CC Mixer. It's your boy Jeff Williams. Word. What's up, young world? It's Jeff Williams.
And Jay Lang.
You're listening to CC Mixer.
It's always in the
Composure on the inside, ulcer on the outside. Footstep cool.
world? Let's get it poppin' with CC Mixer. It's your boy Jeff Williams. Word. What's up, young world? It's Jeff Williams.
And Jay Land.
You're listening to CC Mixer.
Where it's always in the mix.
To everyone who's joined so far. We hope you enjoyed our introductory video. We're just waiting for a few more people to join the session, and we will start in a couple of minutes. Welcome again to everyone. Thank you for joining us today on the second webinar in Reflex Marine's webinar series. My name is Victoria Kalina. I am the media manager at Reflex Marine, and I will be moderating today's session. First, some housekeeping rules. Today's webinar is scheduled to last about 1 hour. All attendees are automatically muted to allow the speakers to present without interruption. Questions can be submitted via the chat box on the right-hand side at any time during the webinar. I encourage you to submit your questions as they arise, and we will be responding to all questions during the Q&A session at the end. The presentation recording will be emailed to you approximately 48 hours after the session. And all our webinars are also available to view on demand on our YouTube channel. If you have any questions about using the platform or accessing the webinar, please let me know in the chat box right now. Okay, then. As I'm not seeing any remarks or questions in the chat right now, I think we are ready to get started. And the topic of today's webinar is crew transfer in the LNG industry. First of all, I would like to introduce our speakers for today. Ms. Sandra Antonovic, Reflex Marine's Chief Operating Officer, and Mr. Charlie House, our Client Relationship Manager. Sandra is responsible for global commercial development and strategic business positioning at Reflex Marine, leading the opening of new markets. Sandra's operational expertise focuses on business transition, diversification, and strategic growth. Today, Sandra will provide us with an overview of the marine crew transfer issues and cost control in the LNG industry, and her perspective on how methods used in the LNG can be effectively translated to other industries. Charlie's background is in business development. He now uses his knowledge and understanding of Reflex Marine's customer requirements to maximize the value of that Reflex Marine provides to its global client base. In today's session, Charlie will walk us through how Reflex Marine's products and services can improve and add safety to your operations. The global pandemic and the economic downturn later saw the whole of oil and gas industry struggling with a major drop in demand, including the LNG market. The impact of 2020 crisis is expected to have repercussions on the medium-term growth potential. Nonetheless, demand levels are expected to return to pre-crisis level in 2021, and demand is emerging markets would benefit from lower natural gas prices. LNG remains one of the fastest growing industries in the energy sector. It is also one where was very welcome over the years, and the progress of improving operations efficiency was truly impressive. Now, although LNG has its very specific challenges, we see that there are some aspects of the operations which can be adapted in other offshore industries as well. Isn't that right, Sandra?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much for the introduction, Victoria, and thank you to everybody who joined us today. Good afternoon, and I would like to welcome our existing clients and our partners, but also extend a warm welcome to some new people that we haven't had a chance to speak to in the past. I hope you will find this session useful. So I'll run you through quickly the how we are basically looking at the LNG market segment and who are we working with so far and what are our experiences so far. So Reflex Marine has been supporting the LNG sector for quite a few years. We specifically turned to this sector after the oil price crisis in 2015, when we were trying to diversify our revenue mix. Since then, we've had a successful few years with supporting the LNG market segment, and a lot of companies are using our products in different LNG projects. So here on this slide, it's just a quick overview to give you an idea who are we working with. So Accelerate Energy, Golar NG, Hoegel LNG, MOL LNG, Petronas, Shell, TK, and a lot of other companies. Here are just a few that we have been working with over the past years. And then we supply our products to a lot of countries that are in the LNG sector, whether as exporters or importers or re-exporters. So we have quite a lot of experience in that market segment. This is quickly just to remind everyone and to remind myself as well what the world production and world consumption has been looking so far. And then we see a dip in 2020. Victoria mentioned that. So the demand dropped, and then the production also dropped, so that there isn't oversupply in an effort to protect prices. It does look quite positive for 2021 on this forecast, which is from the United States Energy Information Administration. So it is their forecast. Most of other forecasts are fairly similar. So we just took this one as a reference point. It does look promising for 2021. And it looks like things are going to go back up for the LNG segment. Of course, this has been reinforced by recent conversations about the COVID-19 vaccine that is now happening in different countries over the world. So it does look promising at the moment for 2021. Of course, we, as everyone else, is going to monitor the situation very closely to try and understand where it's all going and how quickly can the LNG market segment recover. From a perspective of a supplier, usually it is the operators who are looking at world forecasts and global forecasts and this kind of top level information, not so much the suppliers and the supply chain. However, Reflex Marine, because we are a company that supplies to 70 countries in the world on all continents, we very much are trying to stay in touch and staying up to date with what is happening globally, because it helps us understand in which areas of the world the new projects are likely to emerge. And it is also helping us to understand how and where to shift our focus and particularly where to increase our local support. So if there is a part of the world where we need to have more servicing partners or more distributors, and it also tells us in which parts of the world we should consider having local stock. So that is why we, as a niche supplier, are following global trends. This is just to let you know, guys, why we are talking this top level. This map is quite interesting, and I thought it would be a good map to share. It looks quite busy. But on this map, you can see, I'm sure everyone is aware, but this is just to kind of visualize things for this webinar as well. This is basically the movement of LNG across the world. The yellow ones or the amber ones are the importers. The dark blue ones are the exporting countries, and then the stripy ones are both importers and exporters, and some of them, like Brazil, are even doing the re-export. So they are importing and then re-exporting. And India does some of that as well. So it's quite a good mix. It sort of covers all the continents. There is quite a lot of movement and quite a lot of things going on in Australasia and then Middle East. You can see these darker, thicker green lines back and forth. And of course, Europe is one of the points as well. And then we have quite a lot of sea routes for the LNG cargo to be transported from the exporting country to the importing country, or from the re-exporting country to one of the importing countries. The routes of the LNG cargo, and this map is interesting for us, and we do try to follow the movements and the development of the global movements for the LNG market segment, because it tells us from which countries the LNG tankers would depart and to which countries they would end to. And then it also helps us understand the frequency of the movements, and finally it kind of matches with the LNG terminals, whether they're regasification or liquefaction terminals. This is useful for us to try and understand which countries we should be focusing on, where do we need to have stock with units which are extremely suitable for LNG market segment, where we need to have the partner network extremely developed, and where we should basically focus with LNG efforts. So I did mention Australasia with quite a lot of going on in terms of LNG. We do have partner network very well developed in Australia, in Middle East, and then in Singapore, of course, trying to cover all that space. And these partners are offering support to clients who already have our units with servicing and with replacement parts, both onshore and offshore. So we are trying to offer quite good and comprehensible support to our clients in the LNG market segment. This is just a quick pie chart explaining the LNG breakdown globally. So the gray area are LNG tankers. It, of course, consumes most of the LNG market segment. The dark yellow are LNG terminals, both liquefaction and regasification terminals. The amber or orange a part of the pie are FSRUs, and then the blue ones are FLNGs. This is interesting for us because it gives us an overview what types of units would be suitable for LNG market segment. So which of our products essentially are good for this particular market segment. This is just a quick overview on how the LNG operation works. This actually is showing the FPSO, so it is not gas but oil, but it does actually work in a very similar way for FSRUs. So if we replace the FPSO here on this image, the FSRU operation would work in a fairly similar way. Here also, this image is interesting because we can see from it which types of Reflex Marine's products can be suitable for this interfield transfer. And we can understand that the operator here and the subcontractors would need to transfer their personnel from one installation to the other or from one vessel to the other. This is one part of the LNG operations, so ship-to-ship transfer. Here you can see the crane, and at the bottom of the crane, the crew transfer basket is being used. So this is just to illustrate how and when in the LNG operations the crew transfer actually takes place. Again, another part of LNG operations, bunkering, and this is another part of the LNG works offshore where people are being transferred from one vessel to another.
Sandra,
Yes.
as a supplier of safety critical equipment for all offshore industries, how do you perceive the safety attitude in the LNG industry compared to the other offshore industries? How do you think that compares?
That's a great question. Thank you. Well, we have been working in oil and gas industry for almost 30 years now. So we have extensive, our largest experience is from traditional offshore oil industry. And while it's a bit of a mix with oil industry, so some companies are extremely diligent when it comes to safety offshore, especially when it comes to safety during the personnel crew transfer. There are companies that perhaps are not as diligent and perhaps could improve certain things that they are doing and could perhaps update and or improve their practices and procedures. With LNG, so far, almost every company that we are working with or that we have been working with in the past has a very high level of understanding of what is how they can make sure that their crew is safe, what is important, how to assess risks, how to mitigate risks. They are very keen to have a conversation. They are very keen to collaborate. And they do tend to follow the guidelines of the manufacturer and the relevant bodies. So we are. I think it came as a bit of a surprise to us after having spent 30 years in the oil industry, that we didn't actually have to spend a lot of time explaining the importance of safety. They were sort of on top of their game. All of the clients that we have been and all of the companies that we have been in conversation with, they do really set a new standard. And I think they're quite, some of these companies also work in the oil industry, as I mentioned, and they are very on the top of their game when it comes to safety. So it's an interesting relationship. I think LNG market segment is setting a good example for the energy sector as a whole, both for the oil offshore, but also to some extent for other sources of energy that are operating offshore.
And I see this slide now is from an FPSO Europe Congress. I know that you've attended quite a few of various conferences for all types of offshore industries. Would you say that the differences that you just explained are also translated in cross-industry discussions like during conferences? Is safety an important aspect mentioned there as well?
Yes, you are absolutely right. I think that's very true. So we have been collaborating with FPSO Congress for almost 5 years, and we have been present on FPSO World Congress, which is happening every year in September in Singapore, because we did recognize very early on that this is our sort of key market when it comes to LNG. So what is going on between Australia and China? Also what is going on between Middle East and Vietnam, and having Singapore as a hub, and being sort of in the center of all that. With the FPSO Congress, what is interesting is that quite a lot of companies there are working across multiple segments. So they have both the LNG operation, so they operate FSRUs or they operate LNG tankers, and then they also operate FPSOs. And it is interesting to hear their experiences, and particularly when they discuss methods that they're using to increase or enhance safety, particularly when they're moving their crews back and forth. So it's been a really good experience, and that's why I took this very useful um, infographics from the FPSO Congress, because I think it sort of ticks a lot of boxes, and it also reminds us that a lot of companies that we are working with do work cross segments, and they do try to take the learnings from one segment or from one market section and translate it and try to apply it into the other one.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll move on. So this is one most of you will recognize, the transfer basket here. I decided to use this photograph. Obviously, I think everyone understands this is not our product, but rather a product from a different company. And I'm not sure whether it's usual to use other products in the presentations. I decided to use this one to sort of try to emphasize perhaps on the safety side. So here we see one passenger hanging on the outside of the basket. And while the basket appears to be stable, we can ask questions about his safety and how easy it is for him to fall when he's being transferred, and how safe, how protected is he really? So what's the level of protection here? If I move to another slide, so this would be one of our products, Wave 4 for 4 passengers. You wouldn't stand on the outside, of course, but you would rather stand with one of the buoyancies at your back, so you would be inside the unit. This shows a very high level of protection for the passenger, and there is no risk of falling out. So the protection for the person being transferred is extremely high compared to any other method of crane transfer. Wave 4 is a very interesting product. We will have a webinar specifically on Wave next week. Is it next week, Victoria, or is it the week after? I keep mixing weeks.
It's in the week commencing 14th of December. So
Okay, so great. So in that week, we will have a Wave 4 webinar that will specifically deal with this product. Right now, I'm just going to quickly run you through. So Wave 4 is for standing passengers. People are standing, they're not seated. It's for 4 persons. It is the crew transfer basket, the rigid basket with the smallest footprint in the world. It offers extreme protection, and it is very suitable also for challenging weather conditions. So the operating envelope for Wave 4 is also the highest in the world compared to other crew transfer baskets. It is a product that has been received very well in Australasia as a region, and in India as well. So it is a product that is often used in LNG market segment because of the small footprint, and because of the high level of protection that it offers for your crew. So it does tick a lot of boxes that LNG sector is interested in. And then here it's one of our Frog XT range products. You can see that passengers would be seated, so they would be seated and strapped, similar to how you are on an airplane. So here it is even the higher level of safety and comfort as well compared to Wave, because passengers are seated and they're looking to the outside. Our Frog XT range is extremely good in challenging weather conditions and on open sea. So it is the preferred product or the preferred range of products, I should say, for our FPSO clients and also for some FSRU clients. Wave, so to go back to this slide, Wave is in effect more suitable for LNG industry because there is always quite limited space for storage and for landing on LNG tankers, just because of how they're constructed and what deck space they have available. If you need more information about either of these two product ranges, please do visit our website at reflexmarine.com or send us an email to info@reflexmarine.com, and we can send you more information on both product ranges. I'll quickly move on. So I'll hand over to Charlie now. Victoria has introduced Charlie at the beginning, so he's our client relationship manager. I think it's important to mention here that Charlie has been specifically focused on the LNG market segment for several years now. So he's our internal LNG expert, and he will walk you through some more slides that we have prepared for you. So Charlie, over to you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Sandra. Yeah, as Sandra mentioned, I'm just going to quickly walk you guys through some of the device evolution firstly. So looking at personnel crane transfer devices and their development over time, and then moving into how they can be adopted into LNG operations, the areas that you need to consider. So personnel crane transfer carriers were first introduced back in the 1950s. You can see here that was with the Billy Pugh collapsible basket, which is still being used today in some regions and on some installations in LNG. And then in the 80s, we had the SVAG rigid basket, which was a slight development to that, so encompassing sort of a rigid carrier. And then moving into the 2000s, that's where Reflex Marine introduced the first Frog device, which was the Frog 3 rigid capsule, as you can see there, followed by another Billy Pugh variant, which was the semi-rigid basket, the X904, and subsequent sizes of that. And then moving into our latest range of carriers, which was from 2013, which was the Frog XT range, the Wave 4, and then most recently in the last year was the our latest carrier, the Frog XT2 device, which you can find out more about on our YouTube channel. We've recently done a webinar introducing that product. So why is choosing the right method of crane transfer important? When you're on land, you can choose whichever way you go to work, and you normally choose the safest, the most efficient and cost-effective way of doing that. When you're at sea, and when you're operating offshore, it's down to your employer's discretion to make those decisions for you, and ensuring that they're encompassing the right safety procedures and everything to make sure that you get to and from work safely and efficiently. So it's important to look at all of the available options to you. So a lot of the commonly used methods of offshore passenger transfer are helicopters, gangway access, personnel crane transfer devices, which we'll be looking at more specifically today, and pilot ladders. So personnel crane transfer is generally used in offshore operations for either routine crew changes, contingency planning, or in medical situations, medical emergencies where they need to evacuate personnel. And this is broadly used throughout all offshore sectors. So yeah, from anything from oil and gas, merchant shipping, defence, renewable energy, civil engineering, decommissioning, and the LNG industry, which we'll be exploring a bit further. So specifically in the LNG industry, personnel transfer offshore, personnel crane transfer can be used in STS operations. So we need to look at why, how, who, and where are responsible for this operation. So the why is for cargo operations, so transferring people with surveys and paperwork, single point moorings, so terminal access, engineering and technical maintenance, and contingency and emergency use. The how is shipped cargo, or the hose handling crane is normally the crane that's is used, and it's typically a collapsible basket that's used because of either limited deck space or low cost and storage. But we're seeing a wider adoption of operators moving towards our carriers in recent years, since we've launched the Wave 4 and now the XT2 with its smaller footprint. The people responsible are the mooring masters, the STS superintendents, the cargo surveyors, and it can be the embarking crew, technicians, or company personnel that are being transferred. And depending on where the operation is taking place, there can also be government officials and customs and immigration people involved in the STS operation. The two vessels that are undertaking the operation would typically be stationed in benign sheltered waters to minimise any vessel motion, or it can be near terminals, and this happens globally throughout the world. So when you're looking at personnel crane transfer, you have to look at some of the factors that can affect you doing this in the safest possible way. When you're using certain carrier types, you could be reliant on people's strength to ensure that they're holding onto the carrier securely. The skill of the operator, so either the crane operator or the vessel superintendent, to maintain the correct station of the vessel if it's underway. The communication between the two vessels to make sure that they're receiving the carrier correctly. Any time pressures or constraints that are there, which could cause an accident. Making sure the equipment's up to date, so it's certified and ready to be used. There's mechanical performance of the crane, the correct PPEs put in place, and that's all in order. And again, as I touched on a second ago, the environmental conditions. So what the sea state's like, the wind conditions, is the visibility, is it clear? Is there any rain or fog? And what time of the day it is? Is it night? Have you got clear visibility? We believe that there's a big point to be made for safe personnel crane transfer and doing this offshore correctly. The safety versus perception point is looking at how people perceive crane transfer and how they can do it correct, and they can do it as safely as possible. So Reflex Marine in recent years worked with the DMV on a marine versus helicopter report, which highlighted by looking at all of the available data that crane transfer can be significantly safer than helicopter transfers, which is a common misconception, if undertaken in the correct way. This is because there's a much lower chance of an accident, and Reflex Marine's products stand testament to that, as they've carried out over 10 million transfers without a single lost time incident in what is the last 10 years now. So the considerations, you have to make sure that you have the right operational guidance in place, and the correct equipment, and you're aware of all your environmental and external factors that can affect your operation. Reflex Marine is an equipment manufacturer. Also, have worked with numerous bodies to develop operational guidelines that can be implemented to help you carry out safe operations. Here's an example of our 10 golden rules, which are 10 steps that you can put in place before you undertake any personnel crane transfer. To ensure that you do it safely and correctly, which is available to download on the right hand side of your screen now.
Charlie, just on golden rules. This document was developed with 2 other companies. Would you say that cross-company collaboration on projects of this type is important to increasing safety in the LNG and other industries?
Absolutely, yeah. That's a great question, Victoria. I think moving towards something that Reflex Marine do is moving towards a collaboration. It's key to helping sort of change mindsets and getting different perspectives. So whether that be us working with other companies to develop resources like this that we can share with other with operators and our clients, or it be operators working together to make sure that they've got the safest practices and they're sharing that with everyone. It definitely helps towards changing mindsets and attitudes and improving safety overall. And that takes us into regulation. So there's a high level of regulation that's implemented on personnel crane access in the oil and gas industry, and that specifically can be seen in different regulatory bodies depending on which region you operate. Reflex Marine moved towards regulation as much as possible to help increase safety. And as a result, over our sort of tenure in personnel crane transfer, there's been significant changes in regulatory attitude towards personnel crane transfer and specifically the equipment. Most notably in the NORTOP standards, the LOLO guidelines, and the directory of ports and coasts in Brazil that have all specifically stipulated that rigid crane transfer basket equipment would be the equipment used over collapsible baskets or any other form of crane transfer device. But when you look at the shipping sector, regulation's a little bit more unclear because there's not clear guidelines on how to successfully carry out offshore personnel crane transfer. So the IMO regulations for ship personnel transfer isn't specific as of yet to outline the operation. And then there's various insurance groups and that provide guidelines, but there's nothing set in stone to help operators move towards implementing a safe means of personnel crane transfer operation. Having said that, in the last couple of years, the OCIMF guidelines have recently been released on safe ship-to-ship personnel transfers, and they've implemented and they've worked with some of the bodies that we have in implementing some guidelines to help LNG operators and shipping companies move towards safe personnel crane transfer. This can always be improved. Clearer guidance is needed to support operators in their crane transfer operations. Regulatory bodies need to write guidance based on statistical evidence, operator feedback, and best practice. And Reflex Marine firmly believe that a combination of all of those things can help improve safety and the perception of personnel crane transfer. We have a number of resources available to anyone that's interested on crane transfer data. The DMV report that I mentioned a second ago, and offshore personnel crane transfer guidelines on all of our products. So this all sort of ties into how can your company transition to a safer, more cost-efficient method of crew transfer. So we think by looking at the industry bodies, what's out there, looking at their guidelines and what they say, and working and collaborating with those bodies to share working practices and safest practices. Review the options that are available to you, so the equipment that's available, the alternate means of personnel access, and analyze the safety factors and the operational performance of those. And then finally, once those have been implemented, consider the lifespan costs of the equipment, the inspection and maintenance procedures that you need to implement to successfully to carry these out. Reflex Marine for all of our equipment that's used in LNG operations and other offshore personnel crane transfer operations. Is on hand to provide continuous support through our product user manuals, bespoke operational packages, rental options, which are available on all of our products are available on short lead times, and we have partners, some of who are here today, that can provide global support for the inspection and maintenance and servicing of our carriers. Thank you all for being with us today. I hope you found this interesting and useful. I think now, Sandra, if we're going to go through any questions.
Any questions from the chat box, we can go through them now. If for all of you who didn't have a chance to write down when I mentioned, here is our website and the email. If you need any further information on anything we discussed today, please do drop us a line, visit our website. We have extensive resources on our YouTube channel. Also, a very interesting product presentation for XT2. For those of you who didn't have a chance to join that webinar, it's available now on YouTube, and you can listen to and see the slides. We are also on LinkedIn and on Twitter in case you would like to connect with us. Victoria, over to you if we have any questions from the audience.
Thank you very much. Just to let you know, I've shared the link to our YouTube channel in the chat box for anyone if they want to use that now. I don't have any questions from the audience, but I do have one more question for either of you, Sandra or Charlie. Both of you mentioned in the presentation the impact of LNG safety standards on other offshore industries. Do you think this is likely to continue? Do you think LNG is leading the change in offshore safety standards?
I think so. I think it is going to continue, especially because more and more companies from the traditional oil offshore that were not involved in the LNG before, they are moving towards LNG more and more. And also, I think we have to look at the supply chain as well. So it is not just that the operators are moving to LNG, it is their supply chain is also trying to, the same as us, we are a part of the supply chain. We have been looking at the LNG and we have been supporting the LNG market segment for quite a few years now. I think with the energy mix changing, and perhaps that was enhanced with this pandemic and with everything that has been happening globally with regards to COVID-19, I think there will be more and more cross-referencing and knowledge transfer and good practices transfer from different market sections. So from LNG to traditional oil, from offshore wind to both LNG and to traditional oil and gas, and vice versa. So I think it will be quite interesting to see as the energy mix change continues and the world globally is shifting towards cleaner sources of energy, how these companies will impact each other and how they will impact the overall perception and thinking about safety offshore, particularly when we are talking about safe crew transfer.
I agree. I hope and hopefully that will be true. And then just one more question, because you mentioned the impact on the supply chain as well. How would you say the progress in the safety in the offshore industry impacts the development of new products, or specifically for Reflex Marine with the development of the latest Frog XT2 carrier? Would you say that was impacted by the changes in the supply chain overall, or?
Yes, I think that would be a fair statement. You are absolutely right. I also think that one of the other main reason why we developed XT2 was because we were trying to respond to different demands we've had over the years from different clients and different market segments in terms of having a small, compact type of carrier that can be stored in a very limited space, and that also doesn't take a lot of deck space when it needs to land. So we've had those inquiries from LNG, from offshore wind, but also from merchant shipping and from offshore civil engineering. So we did work on developing a product that would tick all those boxes. With regards, your question was about the supply chain. I think it's an important piece of the puzzle because we all seem to talk a lot about what operators are doing and what operators are, where they're going and what's their next project and which market segment they're turning to. We have Shell, for example, who is extremely strong now in LNG market segment, and they're one of the operators that made that visible change in focus. But I think we have to make sure that the supply chain is able to follow. So it is not a question of whether supply chain wants to follow or not. I think the answer to that would be definitely yes. I think it's the question of, are they equipped to follow the operator through their changes? And I think the operators play a big role in that, in making sure that they support their supply chain in the transition as they move towards different sources of energy, to the same extent as their supply chain has been supporting them over the years. We've been pretty lucky in that regard, Reflex Marine. So we did make the change and the transition as a company 5 years ago with the 2015 oil price crisis. We then transitioned to a lot of different market segments because we were trying to mitigate the risk of having revenue coming only from one market segment. So I think we are quite equipped, and we've been quite proactive and diligent, making sure that we are ready to support different energy operators, from offshore wind to LNG, and of course our main focus still traditional oil and gas.
We don't have any other questions at the moment. If anyone from our attendees would like to continue the conversation, then please do email us at info@reflexmarine.com. And I think that's everything we have for today. So thank you everyone very much for joining. Thank you, Sandra and Charlie, for your insightful presentation. And we will see you again in a couple of weeks' time for the Wave 4 webinar.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.